So let's talk about some challenges that were common across both of these companies. One of them, absolutely, I've already covered on in terms of having this dealer or retailer network that we have to work with. Another one is obviously a very deep bill of material. The auto industry has a deep bill of material. You wouldn't think that a faucet has a deep bill, but it does. We actually took it to 10 levels deep, modeled all 10 levels within JDA. Long lead times because our supply chain stretches all the way into China. So we do component manufacturing in China, final assembly typically within the Americas. There's a lot of commodity inflation. You think over the past 3 to 4 years and what's been going on with copper prices and the like means that the more inventory you have on the water, the more exposure you have. Think of a doorknob. A doorknob is a high metal product made out of brass, made out of zinc, made out of copper. And if we have literally containers of these coming across the ocean and the copper values swing, we could be selling those at a loss. So we want to keep as little inventory, if you will, in transit as we possibly can. Most recently, we've discovered a new challenge with the recession, and that was supplier viability. You wouldn't think of it, but as the industry started to consolidate, many of the suppliers in China and in Mexico started to go out of business as the recession occurred. So we had orders that were pending with suppliers that suddenly weren't delivered. Components that were going to come into our Tier 2, Tier 1 that never arrived. So how do you avoid that? What do you do? So what we've looked at is an integrated solution. You've heard this a couple times now, right? You heard Brian talk about the percentage and the number of integration points that there are, but we look at it as an integrated solution, starting with demand, going through to distribution, and then all the way back into manufacturing. So let's start with the actual demand planning side. When we think about demand planning, we sat down and we broke it into these 3 key areas: inform, measure, and engage. Our intention here is not just to forecast. You notice we used a demand planning word. And you'll hear sometimes people say demand planning, sometimes they'll say demand shaping, sometimes they'll say forecasting. Each one of those is a very different concept. And what we were trying to do in many cases was shape demand. So by informing our consumers and explaining to them our product set and why it was a better product than our competitors, we were trying to shape that demand. We were measuring POS offtake at each one of those stores. Remember I talked a little bit about the 2,800 stores across the network. We literally took each one of those stores and modeled it within JDA. So we saw our retailers' stores as part of our supply chain. So Black & Decker sat there, we said, here's a demand point, and then we linked our distribution centers into their distribution centers in terms of that model, which is pretty unique, right? To have a manufacturer that's trying to get that close to you and model your supply chain and their planning tools and then solve so that they can optimize inventory across the entire supply chain. And then finally, engage. Engage the end consumer after the sale and before the sale. Our intention is, if we can engage that consumer, they'll come back and they'll buy again. Next time they move, they'll say, you know what? I bought the lock. I enjoyed buying that lock. It's worked for me. I go to their website. I've had good customer service throughout. I'm going to buy another one. Because quite often, a lock or a faucet can be thought of as almost a commodity. So what we wanted to do was engage that consumer.